everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get Cooked. I'm Sarah Cook, and today I'm going to be talking to Jed Altschwager, member of the Australian rowing team. Jed, welcome. Great to have you on our episode.
Thanks, Sarah. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, let's get straight into it. And we're going to start with one of those you can't ask that questions, but we're going to go ahead and ask it because I know that you're up for it.
Please
Can
do.
you tell us about how you lost your leg?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was 2015, so almost coming up 5 years. I was working in civil construction, so earth moving. I was sitting on an excavator, basically in a pretty precarious position. I was digging post holes, just as normal as sort of doing sort of whatever I needed to do that day. And we had a little cave-in on the left side of the track, and basically the machine tipped. And as I'm sitting now in this seat, basically I've reacted as putting my left leg sort of to brace myself, even though it seems silly since the machine's about 2 ton. But, you know, as you do, you sort of react. And I did that and then come down, and it's pinned between the road and the cab itself. It just basically got squished between the road and the cab. And that's basically how the accident went down. It was in pretty bad nick there, but wasn't severed. And then later that night, nightish, about 10:30 that night, it was amputated, and that's when the journey began.
Wow, and it's remarkable because I've heard you tell that story a couple of times now, how, I guess, matter of fact you are about it and how positive you sound about it. I mean, I can't even imagine how horrendous an experience like that would have been. Has this taken time for you to get to this place where you can just talk about it in a very matter-of-fact way?
Partly yes and partly no. So, absolutely, it's been a huge personal growth and personal growth journey that I've been on, emotionally and physically. And, you know, for sure, the first, week, month, 6 months, year, isn't quite like it is now. But I definitely had some sort of drive very early on that was driven, steered by positivity and extremely driven. So that was always there. But it was always anything that happens to you in life, whether it be good or bad, but generally bad. Sometimes it takes time, and depending on how long, but it'll take time to digest. And so I guess it was just that digestion of the accident, the loss that I went through. And then you can, like I said, because I was driven positively, I found myself in a remarkable situation that I could look back, and I can look back at that as a positive thing in my life now. So, yeah.
That's absolutely incredible, and I know that you're a much loved member of the Australian rowing team, and I think your positivity and what you bring to the team as an individual is such an important part, and why you're such a fan favourite. So it's great to be able to interview you and get to know you a bit better.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how you found rowing. I mean, were you athletic before? Were you an athlete before your accident? And then how did you find para rowing?
No, I really wasn't. I wish I had a photo to show you. So I definitely wasn't an athlete. I was, I was in late 20s. I'd spent, obviously majority of my 20s surfing in a band. I liked a beer as you do, and had a really good group of mates. And, I just was engaged. Just married, just prior to the accident. So kind of that's where I was at. But being athletic was not... I really didn't care about my body. I can look at it now. I thought I did, but I definitely didn't. But from there, it was just a journey. And one of the biggest lessons I learned when I lost my leg, one of the first things that stuck out to me was how important the body was. And so from there, it was like that journey that I went on to where I am now. And it was just like, first of all, how important it was, so don't take it for granted. And then second of all, how far can I push my body? And that went from just learning to walk, how far can I push it, how quickly and how good can I walk, to how fast can I row, and can I, the other end of the scale, 3 years later into that. So, so that's kind of how it worked. But for me, I started in rehab. That was the first gym that I'd ever been to. And so the first time I'd ever looked at gym stuff. And then we went from there to, I loved it. Like I said, grew a huge passion for it. Started in CrossFit, loved that for about 18 months. And then sort of got to the stage where I was like, I'm in pretty good nick. I could look at a para sport. Love the water, and that's why I chose rowing. Among other things, we looked at kayak and stuff. I more of just a suggestion. So I looked at a few things, and it's just a matter of fact that Gordon Marks was at Westlakes the next week or something after I spoke to Tim Matthews from Paralympics Australia. So I met Gordo, and then from there it was I really liked what he was basically saying, and from there it was like, well, I'm going to give rowing a go, and then that's basically where we started. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible, and I like how you just brushed over. I had to learn to walk and then see how fast I can go in a rowing boat. That's massive. I mean,
yeah, it's a big journey from there, but yeah.
Absolutely, and I think the way you speak about it in such a nonchalant way is really just incredible, and that journey is so massive that you've gone over in just such a short period of time. When was your accident? It wasn't that long ago now.
2000, and so it was. I should know the exact date, but let me just have a quick think in my head.
It's all right.
It's July 2015-ish. It was something like that. So it's coming up 5 years, which feels short and long. It depends, I don't know how quite, but I'm looking forward to the date. I always do. I always, usually have a really tough workout. I, usually jam a couple of extra things in that day just to push it, but also celebrate it. So yeah, it's coming up soon, I guess.
Good on you. That's amazing. And what has your accident taught you about yourself, and in turn, what has rowing taught you?
Yeah, it was a big on-flow effect. So first of all, the accident and going through that physically and emotionally, I guess I learnt, number one, how important my body is, and also just not to take things for granted, and also, through the process of trying to stay positive and trying to stay on that positive path that I always explain to people, through that process, daily, activations in gratitude and thankfulness. So I was doing that every day, and I still do. And so if you do that multiplied by X amount of days, you're going to have quite a beautiful outlook on life, and to be able to tackle certain situations. So then that sort of started to snowball into just how I approached everything, and that turned into, okay, we've got rowing. And so the way I set goals was the exact same. How I really put my mind to, say, like I said before, walking, it was like, all right, we've got rowing. I need to learn to row. I never sat in a boat, so I was just like, all right, I need to. Obviously, that's what I need to do. Join a club, get in a boat. I was under the impression quite early on that I couldn't just stick to the club sessions, 3 sessions a week. I wasn't going to get good enough quick enough. So I was like, I just really had this drive, and that came from how powerful that experience was after my accident, and that drive has driven me through to learning rowing, and then pursuing, I guess, my personal best in rowing. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great message, and particularly around gratitude and the situation that we all find ourselves in at the moment with COVID and various degrees of shutdown, and a lot of these things we're excited about, the Olympics, the Paralympics, the World Championships, World Cups, all being pushed and cancelled for athletes, but even just for anyone who's at home and seeing the things they were ordinarily looking forward to cancelled. That what you're talking about in terms of gratitude on a daily basis and that mindfulness is so important, and a lesson we can all take.
Yeah, so spot on. That's exactly right. That was a beautiful sentence. That's been massive lately, and things like patience, and like one thing you learn, and you can navigate through life sometimes, and it's not always going to be easy, and so I think we've got to realize. For me, I realized this when I lost my leg, that and went through that. It was like, it's not always easy, but that's cool, because you generally tend to grow as much when stuff's easy. And for me, when it becomes about what do I want, what's happiness to me, it's personal growth, right? And so for me, it's like, well, it's not that this COVID thing excited me, but what I'm talking about is when this started to happen, I go, okay, what can we do with this? How can we grow? I really it was like a heightened sense, and that happened when, it's not like I was excited when I lost my leg, but I can explain it as this heightened sense. And so I think this is a good message for everyone, is don't steer away from the hard things in life, and have a crack, and really push yourself as hard as you can, because that's really when you're going to grow. So and COVID is a perfect example, and it's a beautiful example at the moment as well, because we're all doing it. Like, it's rare that every single human being on the planet is doing it at the moment. So there's that. Can't see exactly what's going to come of that yet, but I know it's going to be pretty cool. So it's happening at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the bonuses, I guess, with this situation is that you're spending more time at home, more time with your beautiful family.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about how, I guess, your priorities changed when you welcomed your son Wolfgang, and how that helped you on your recovery?
Yeah, it really did. I guess one of the coolest things was, I guess, the bad news when I lost my leg, and having that echoed through my family and my mum and dad and my mother-in-law and father-in-law and my brother and sister. That news echoing, and obviously the support that then they gave me, but how amazing it was. Like, what was 2000? It was like maybe 18 months later to have this amazing news. When we told everyone Jess was pregnant, it was probably less than that. So it was like having this amazing news and going, well, now Jess is pregnant, and how beautiful that was. And then the old story of you don't know if you don't know, and you really don't until you have kids, I guess, is just the explosion of love, and the explosion of basically they matter, and that's my number one. And when that shifts, and then your family unit sort of becomes the number one, it was amazing. But then also, I've got to admit, is pursuing a Paralympic dream, and that is almost polar opposite of what you have to be, which has been tough. It's because it's not like I'm going down and playing social basketball on the Saturday morning. You know what I mean? It's 6 days a week, 2 to 3 sessions a day, plus the months away. You know what I mean? So it's been a tough thing like this, fully supported by the family, 100%, especially my wife, but it's more the internal fight in my own brain of going, hang on, so it's tough, but we're cruising along, and that's cool. So yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And on a daily basis, how do you balance your family life and your training? Because people often say being an athlete is a really selfish pursuit. How do you stay focused and do what you need to do, but still, I guess, share that time and share yourself with your family?
Yeah, I guess got to make a conscious effort to, one, when the time is there, be 100% there and present. And also, I like being at home and training in my home environment. There are some bonuses, because you're out early in the morning, but I'm usually back for a couple of hours, and I am in and out. And yeah, there are some sessions, like e.g. some bikes here and there, that are flexible on time, so I can, so there is that I can have that extra special moment here and help Jess out here and there when I can. And I always try and be home. I always try and make dinner, and so I always squeeze Jim in a little earlier, just to get home. There's a few things I do just to make sure it doesn't feel too me. It's all about Jed, which it totally can, and I can understand that. And then the occasional thing, I think this happens in every relationship too. It's not just an elite athlete, is, you got to watch, how your partner's going, and she does the same for me. And sometimes I can tell, Jess needs that day, or you know what I mean, or needs that half a day. I want to have the kids for even an hour or whatever that is, and that's just normal in every relationship, but I have to be conscious of it. That's the big thing.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've got an incredible support network there, and a great relationship with your family, which is really special. And I bet that spurs you on as well when you're doing the hard yards.
Yeah, it does.
Now, you are a 2-time World Championship silver medalist in the PR3 men's pair. So I think I know the answer to this one, but one of our listeners wants to know, sweep or scull?
Definitely sweep. Yeah, definitely sweep. I spent a lot of time... Yeah, thanks, mate. I knew you were. I've spent a lot of time sculling, but I'd have to... sweep for sure. It's just something about it, especially in the pair. It's just so good.
Absolutely. Best boat. I agree.
Yeah.
And we had someone want to know, how do you keep the boat straight? I guess this is more about the single scull, probably, where you don't have a rudder, and obviously the difference in strength in your legs and functionality. So how do you actually keep the boat straight?
Yeah, to be honest, it's never been an issue, not even once, even when I first started. So, it's probably... Maybe also because I'd never rowed before. Maybe if I went from rowing, injury, got back into a boat, I'd find some sort of weirdness. But and I found this a lot with all sorts of things that I've done since my accident, is you just make it works. And so whether or not my body is adjusting somehow, I do have sort of, how your body works in slings, so I do have some sort of issues, and I'm a lot stronger on my right side. So there are some issues here and there, niggles like everyone has, but mine are always associated with my left leg not being as strong. Basically, every niggle I has is okay. It comes from, it might be up my back, but it's because this leg. So that's probably the thing. But my boat certainly goes straight. I mean, there's been the odd race here and there that you hit a boy, but anyway,
we've all been there. We've all been there. And in terms of your rowing career and your journey to date, what's the hardest moment that you've had? Is there one time or one moment that you can think of that, was really tough?
Probably, I've got to say selection. Selection's probably the hardest moments I've had in the sport. You question what the heck you're doing here and all of that sort of stuff. And, there's something about it. We were halfway kind of through selection this year and COVID kind of kicked in. But I remember sitting there and looking across at Will, and I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this to ourselves? Like that feeling. But definitely some of the hardest moments have been through selection. Team selection is tough, mate. Yeah, as you know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most athletes who heard you say that answer would probably say, yep, you know what, give me the hardest session any day. Selection trials, you wouldn't wish it upon anyone.
Yeah, spot on.
So we're up to our fast five now, our 5 questions that I ask all of our guests. So we'll get straight into it. Yep, hydrate, get ready for it. All right. What's your favourite rowing course to row on?
Cirque.
Cirque, absolutely. Top track to erg to?
Beds Are Burning, Midnight Oil.
Oh, good one. You just picture a bit of Peter Garrett going absolutely berserk while you're on the erg.
Love it.
Yeah, maybe don't mirror those moves on the rowing machine. Best piece of advice you've been given?
Don't worry what people think.
Nice.
With respect, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Career highlight to date?
Winning gold at the International Para Regatta last year with Will.
Amazing. And our team did so well at that regatta. I remember it was a real breakthrough regatta for the Australian para team. So,
it was.
Yeah, well done on all your success there. And finally, the hardest session you've ever done?
I think I'd have to say probably repeat rate 28 8-minute pieces. Like I think it was that 6 or 7 of them. Probably one of the hardest sessions. It's hard to pick them. Like there's so many.
They just melt together.
They all melt together, but that's probably one of the hardest. A big long K session is sometimes a little hard on the head mentally, but as far as physically, I think it was rate 28. We did back to back 6 or 8 of them. Yeah.
That's a bit of a nasty rate too, isn't it? Just, that sort of sub-max.
Sub-max, and you do a few of them,
Yeah, no,
anyway.
Very worthy answer there.
Yeah.
Well, that winds up our chat for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Jed, and all the very best in navigating through this period and, of course, looking towards the international season in 2021 and the Paralympic Games next year.
Yeah, thanks heaps for having me, mate. I appreciate it. It's been good.